Merch. Put it on your body. Ooh. Drink from it. Embrace it. What am I doing?
I like proving to people that nobody is actually as virtuous as they pretend they are. Especially
Wait a second.
as someone who has always lived a generally virtuous, regular life.
Nobody is as virtuous as they pretend they are. Hello lovely people, my name is Emma. Yes, that was a little bit of a merch advert. Today's video is sponsored by me. Haha! Just kidding. Yes, I have been making merch. It feels like about time, right? I've been plodding along trying to put this together for a while. I have loads of really cute designs in the pipeline, so hang on for more excitement. I just wanted to start with something subtle and simple. I'm planning to get into some more specifically channel-related stuff, but I just wanted the first thing available to be something that could just be a nice piece of clothing for people to wear. So I went with embroidery. I think the colours really pop. I'm really a fan of the embroidery. And then you can't beat a cute mug. You just can't. You cannot beat a cute mug. All of these are available in different colours, just so you know. And that's the last I'm gonna say about it. I'm putting them away and you won't have to hear about it anymore. First things first, I sat on my glasses. So if they slowly become wonkier and wonkier, sorry. Once again, my butt is the source of most of my problems. I don't even know where to begin on what we're going to talk about today. I know internet memory is short, but do you remember? There was a young chap on TikTok a little while ago who briefly blew up thanks to a video called Women Aren't Real. It was very silly and offensive. It's not something that I really thought was worth covering at the time. Tons of people did. You can watch loads of videos about it out there if you want to. I must thank and condemn Villa Vendetta on Twitter for sending this to me, letting me know that he's back. Nuance Now, as he is known online, has returned to the internet. He has a YouTube channel now. Fortunately, or not, depending on your perspective, his TikTok was banned and now he's back on YouTube and he's going to explain everything. I've skimmed through it and made some notes, and I won't spoil too much by going too deep into it before we start, but there's some problems with the way he talks and his worldview, and it's nothing to do with the sexism or extreme groups. It's nothing to do with that. While he briefly mentions a couple of offensive topics that he's used for clickbait in the past, there's nothing outright sexist or extreme in this video. It's just a sort of condescending, rambly, slightly nonsensical bit of madness. He does put a trigger warning at the start. There's a trigger warning on his channel, and he seems to be copying and pasting that into the description of every video that is essentially not for snowflakes. Not in those exact words, but that's the gist. I don't think this particularly needs a trigger warning. I think we should just get into it. So there you go. This video may offend some viewers. I don't know what in it is supposed to be offensive. He seems to think he's the most effective, controversial figure on the internet, and we'll get into him, you know, saying as much in the video. I don't think there's anything offensive in this. I just feel concerned, mostly for him.
I think it's time for some much needed clarification, don't you? Now before we get started, I'm aware that some of you are going to dislike the video and try to leave a hateful comment before I've even finished this sentence. If you're one of
I'm not going to, because likes and dislikes and comments are turned off.
the people I'm describing, then you may have already noticed that I removed these options. You will not find an outlet for your mob mentality here. So unless you're going to sit down and listen like a grown adult, please leave and find something else to throw a tantrum over. This is a video.
That's definitely up there in terms of most condescending introductions to a video I've ever seen. In a way, I certainly understand the frustration at getting hateful comments from people who haven't watched all of your content, people who don't watch a video all the way through or even at all before leaving something hateful. Yeah, mob mentality is a problem. I kind of get the frustration. The thing with I never understand when people make YouTube videos like this is that there's an editing process in between, right? Sometimes I slip up and I'm like, oh, that thing I said was a little bit rude, might have been a little bit over the top, but I have an entire editing process, and I have a delete button. I just don't understand. Like, he's made a conscious choice to include this really dismissive, condescending language right at the start of his video. Maybe he wants to put off people who will criticize him? I'm not sure.
Video for people who can handle conversations of greater depth than an episode of Cocomelon. However...
An episode of what? What did he say? Cocomelon?
Of greater depth than an episode of Cocomelon. However...
Cocomelon? What is Cocomelon? Are Americans going to be angry at me over this? I know we're only in the very intro, but I think this demonstrates a couple of important things about this guy's persona. I say persona rather than personality because I don't yet know whether this is a real person or a character. What he's doing here is he's protecting himself and his worldview by enforcing a kind of echo chamber. Those who disagree with him are like children throwing tantrums, people who just aren't willing to listen. They're part of a hate mob. Those who will listen will learn something interesting because he has so much wisdom to share. There's no room for people who listen but also find problems within his video. He immediately criticises anyone who would disagree with him for not listening and learning, but by turning off the comments, he entirely shuts himself off from learning from anyone who has a different opinion.
For those of you with a mind for deepening your understanding of the world and viewing life through lenses that you hadn't yet imagined before, I think you'll find this video very interesting. First, however, there's an important guideline that I need to establish with you. This will be a long video, and
It's 26 minutes long. Man, if you think that's a long video, oh, wait till you see this one. I have a lot of notes. Imagine if I started every video of mine like that. Listen, this is gonna be long, and if you don't watch all of it, get out!
and all the details within it are tied to each other. So unless you're going to sit through the entire video from start to finish, just click off it and watch it another time, or don't watch it at all.
Watch my video my way, or don't watch it at all.
To the end or jumping around in the video will not work, because there is no one detail or conclusion to be found where everything will make sense in one sentence.
Was it Albert Einstein who said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough?
I'm going to be answering a lot of the most frequently asked questions, as well as explaining the reasoning behind the content, and even breaking down why my video, Women Are Not Real, was so effective. Now that that's out of the way, let's get started. I don't want anyone to think of this as a response video. I've already heard it all. This is more like a pulling back of the curtain to explain what my motivation was for making all the inflammatory content, among many other things. I'm going to be sharing with you the main goal of all the offensive videos. Now, if we're really going to talk about the origins of my content, then we need to start from the very beginning.
Why is he shirtless so often in his videos? And according to his content, he's a modesty first kind of guy. Put a fucking shirt on.
November last year, to be precise. What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about how to meditate. Yo, what is up? Today I want to talk about how to normalize something. Everyone's always saying, normalize this, normalize that. This is how you do it. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? Before you...
So basically here he just throws out a few examples of how he did non-inflammatory content at first.
Initially I started making TikToks because it seemed like an easy way to gain a following quickly. And while this definitely proved to be true a few months down the line after I changed the format of my content, it certainly wasn't true while I was playing it safe. How to use your brain more effectively. And as you just saw from a few of those old TikToks of mine, the original goal of making videos was never to bash any one group of people or promote hate. And that...
No, the original goal was to get views. He's talking about how he's going to explain his motivation throughout this video. I feel like he already has. He joined TikTok because it seemed like a quick place to gain a following, that's what he said. When he made non-inflammatory content, it didn't get many views. When he started making outrage content, he did get views. It's as simple as that. We could end the video right now.
Nobody radicalized me, and I certainly don't identify with any of the subcultures that people have assigned to me in their desperation to avoid using their intelligence to genuinely think about any of the things that I've said. TikTok, however, is a magical habitat, which hosts a variety of different species of content creators, including this little lady, who I'll talk about more in a second.
It's a very overt othering technique to literally refer to your dissenters as another species. And then he introduces some other TikTok creator by calling her Little Lady. He knows what he's doing. He's doing that to make people angry because that's how you get views. He's not very subtle.
TikTok is a cesspool of reactionary garbage. Nonetheless, it is a useful cesspool, and someone who knows how to work it like a system can become very popular very quickly.
It's a cesspool of reactionary garbage, but my reactionary garbage was done on purpose to get attention, and therefore I am the big smart man and everyone else sucks.
And while I could go into much greater depth about why TikTok sucks, I'll save that for another video. I'm not sure if it was just the time period during which I joined TikTok, but there seemed to be such a large amount of femcel and radical feminist content on the platform. Not to mention the whole kill all men trend that was circulating at the time I joined.
What was it he said a minute ago about people assigning him to groups that he didn't identify with and how that's just us being small-brain, unintelligent apes? Again, he's making like weird, rude claims about a content creator who he goes on to say is a high schooler. And I think that however active they might be on the internet, if you feel you're a person with big influence, you probably shouldn't make hateful claims about actual children. That's just my opinion.
As someone who has always lived a generally virtuous, regular life, and even more so as someone who was trying to produce helpful content for others, it seemed very unfair that I was being treated with the same animosity as the people who had actually done something wrong. My patience was wearing thin, and while I actually wanted to avoid making confrontational content...
What is this animosity he's talking about being treated with? When he was making videos on meditation and things and he said he wasn't getting many views. I'd love him to elaborate on what this animosity is before he started making controversial content.
Final straw was when I saw a video made by this literal high schooler that I mentioned earlier. She likes to think of herself as a revolutionary of some sort, despite the fact that she hasn't ventured beyond the walls of her own bedroom. I'd honestly be surprised if she's ever actually met a male human, but I digress.
It's literally the kind of childish, insulting hate comments that he was chastising us all for. If we ever put a comment criticizing him, we're just part of their hate mob. And he's like, I bet she's never even gone outside or met a man before.
She made a video way back in December last year asserting that men don't see women as anything more than commodities. And I decided that enough was enough.
Sex work relies on the disenfranchisement of women to exist.
You know what's getting super fucking old? Women blaming men for things that they enable. Sex work requires the disenfranchisement of women to even exist. The only people I see promoting sex work are women, and they're promoting it to underage girls. And the men in the comments who I see only ever discourage that type of behavior. I don't think you ever talked to a man in your life. You probably don't have a dad or a relationship with your dad.
Love it. Daddy issues trope. Classic.
I didn't actually expect anything significant to happen from that video. I just felt like ranting. But I noticed after a while that it was actually the most popular video on my channel at the time. And when the rest of your videos are averaging around 200 views, and all it takes is a little rant to skyrocket your engagement, you'd be an idiot not to learn anything from that. Well, I don't think anyone wants to be known as the woman hater channel, and I didn't either. I still hadn't grown large enough to feel ready to drop the momentum. So I decided I would continue making inflammatory content until a catalyst occurred.
Okay, so his claim is that a woman on TikTok made a controversial video that he disagreed with. So his only option was to make inflammatory sexist content about women. That's what reaction videos are for. His TikTok response that he showed before, while a little bit silly, and this kind of does feel like a petty back and forth between two high schoolers, that's fine. That's what reaction videos are for. Rationally dissect what you disagree with. Instead, he's gone off in this like, well, some women make stinky videos about men, so I'm gonna make stinky videos about women.
TikTok banned me before my follower goal was reached. And so it was on to YouTube, gathering notoriety until finally, YouTube's apparent golden boy, Jesus himself, made a video on me. I will admit it was quite a shock, albeit disappointing in its own way. The video of mine that blew up was actually a couple months old even before that guy got to it, and it had already received a fair number of opposition videos that didn't really go anywhere. I was hoping he would have added some sort of unique commentary, or at least insult me in a way I hadn't heard, but we don't always get what we want. Now let's answer
feedback I got was worthless, so I didn't have to listen to it. Do you see what I mean about this conspiracy mentality? This building of an echo chamber for himself? No one who criticizes me ever has anything useful to say.
Some of the most frequently asked questions and dispel some of the most common assumptions, at least that I've seen. Basic assumption number 1, that I nuked my TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
Is the topic of deleting his social media really the most frequently asked question?
First off, I never even had a Twitter account, so I'm not sure how that rumor found its way into circulation. As for Instagram, I reposted like 2 TikToks way back in April, but I decided to discontinue that months ago, so that's irrelevant anyway.
So that's irrelevant anyway, idiot, even though I'm the one that brought it up.
I got banned, and the 2 videos I had posted on my second account many months ago got taken down way back when my main account was also banned. Can
I just say, it sucks that you can get banned on TikTok and then just immediately make a new account. What the fuck kind of system is that?
These days, I'm almost never on TikTok anyway, so that's hardly relevant. YouTube is a different
Once again, I brought it up. This is my point that I'm making. But it's hardly relevant. Shut up!
The most common assumption, and by far the most idiotic, is that I privated my YouTube videos out of fear of criticism, or because I couldn't handle it. You guys, I've been doing this for close to a full year now. The vast majority of criticism I've received was thrown at me long before Penguins ever made a video on me. Not to mention I've had dozens of other large creators attack me as well.
This is ridiculous. I can handle criticism, you know, by turning off comments and repeatedly telling myself that any criticism I get isn't worth listening to. You said skipping around wouldn't work, right? Because of all the nuance. It's all tied together. You need every piece to understand the whole. We could have skipped loads of this. What does not deleting his socials have to do with fully understanding the motivation and meaning behind his mighty TikTok videos?
I've heard every insult you could possibly call me, and I've heard them all hundreds of times. At this point, they just look like regular comments to me. And as a matter of fact, I've got a folder in my computer that's literally called My Favorite Hate Comments. So please
Me too!
believe me when I tell you that criticism is definitely not something that keeps me up at night. You like to push that idea because you want me to be this stereotypical comic book bad guy who runs away now that the good guys got him. You want to have...
Suddenly, it's you. All of a sudden, we're talking to the haters, the critics. Now he's suggesting that everybody viewing the video is accusing him of hiding from criticism, which, incidentally, doesn't have anything to do with being a comic book villain. That's what the fuck are you talking about? These kind of thought-stopping techniques, I am the one who is right, everybody who disagrees with me, I can find some excuse from my bag full of excuses, I can pull something out that means that I don't have to listen to anyone who disagrees with me on anything. This is super common in cults because it stops you asking questions, prevents you from listening to any outside voices. I know he doesn't like to associate with any particular group, he's very adamant about not associating with any just group in general, but this kind of thought-stopping stuff is very common in the manosphere, in the red pill side of content creation. Look at somebody like The Rational Male. If you watch one of his streams, it becomes obvious very quickly. He has a bag full of tricks, and any time a voice that he disagrees with, aka a woman, speaks, he will pull something from his bag of tricks to invalidate her entire existence or anything she says. That means that he doesn't have to listen to any of the actual content. It's the same thing here. You, who disagrees with me, are wrong because of one of 20 reasons, and therefore I never have to listen to you or change anything about my perspective or my life.
Have your little moment where you whack me into the stratosphere until I twinkle away like Team Rocket because it plays into this fantasy you're trying so desperately to have about defeating the bad guy. Reality's quite a bit more complex than that, I'm afraid. Another idea I noticed showing up a lot is that people seem to think I'm scared of anyone.
For someone who is trying really hard to reassure viewers over and over again that he doesn't care about criticism, he's being super defensive. Everyone watching me is an idiot with a hero complex, and also rude and ignorant. Reality is quite a bit more complex than that, which I would know being an intelligent individual, just in case you weren't aware.
Critically analyzing my content. What's funny to me is that you think you're... People seem to think I'm scared of anyone critically analyzing my content.
Didn't he just talk about this? The first point, I'm not afraid of criticism. The second point, I'm not afraid of criticism in the form of content analysis.
That you think you're the one doing the critical analysis. If your mind is so fogged by cognitive dissonance that you can't hear a word I'm saying without breaking out your pitchforks and torches, you're not critically analyzing anything. You're flailing around in your own emotional nonsense.
There he goes again. Everyone who analyzes my content is engaging in cognitive dissonance, which I think I've sufficiently demonstrated Nuance Now is incredibly guilty of. Everyone, you, none of you have ever made a point worth listening to. You're all just emotional. The entire world is wrong and I have the answers. I've mentioned before, I have a conspiracy theorist in the family. This is exactly how they operate. This is how they convince themselves. It's often tied to mental health issues, sometimes loneliness. I'm not saying that's the case with Nuance Now. I don't know anything about him as a person. I don't even know if this is a real person or if this is just a character. But this closed-mindedness to the outside world and this miserable box that it traps you in is just really sad to me. I do feel for people who are stuck in that way of thinking, because they will never take on any outside influence.
The natural versatility of your intelligence is chained down by all your own preconceived notions of the world, or the preconceived notions that somebody else gave you. That's not even mentioning the fact that a lot of what I say is only figurative and not meant to be taken at face value. I think
This figurative versus taking at face value thing is something I hear from the Red Pill crowd a lot as well. I'll be honest, I don't understand it. I can generally pick up on a metaphor, but with these guys, it seems like they just say their piece, and when they get criticised afterwards, they say, well, you aren't supposed to take it all literally. Which parts are real and which parts are figurative then? Why wasn't it clear when you first said it? Why wouldn't you elaborate on what is meant to be taken figuratively and what is meant to be taken literally? It seems kind of like an afterthought, like just a get-out-of-jail-free card. Should we circle back for a second and cover what Nuance Now says about those who criticise him, aka you? We're all over-emotional. We're all engaging in cognitive dissonance. We don't listen to his video. We take his figurative statements too literally. He will never take any criticism on board while he believes those things. He has convinced himself, and he is trying very hard to convince his viewers, that everyone who disagrees with him is wrong for one reason or another. There is nothing you or I can do to make him listen to anything we say, because we're dissenters, we're outsiders. This is Nuance Now's own personal cult, and he is the only member.
That all my fanatical critics would do well to remember, and probably one of the most important facts about this entire ordeal, is that zero real harm was caused. I need you guys to really understand that. For those of you who are terrified that all the stuff I said has caused untold harm across the world, allow me to pull your head out of your own ass for you.
Now our heads are in our asses. Our asses? Ass. I'll never get that one right.
Relative to the amount of people who exist on the planet, almost nobody knew who I was. And most people will never know who I am, no matter what I say or do. Despite that you might think, millions of people hate me now. That's not actually how the universe works. I've been walking around in public and interacting with people the same as I always have, and I haven't gotten so much as a dirty look. As I've said many times before, and I'll say many times again, reality is much more nuanced and complex than most people realize. The world is far too intricate for a petty internet squabble to cause anything of great significance.
If you needed another insight into how self-absorbed this man is, his proof that no harm has been caused by his video is that he has never personally suffered as a result.
I can tell only a great amount of good has been caused by the content, especially when taking all of the videos I've produced into consideration, not just one single, obviously clickbait video filtered by a few mainstream influencers. I've received tens of thousands of positive messages and emails over the course of my time making videos, from people who have been positively impacted by the fresh and interesting perspective I've contributed to the general.
Let's look at how he talks about others versus how he talks about himself. Other people, stupid. They don't understand the complexity of the world, over-emotional, etc, etc. When he talks about himself, fresh and interesting. He understands the nuance of the world.
Discussion, not just about dating or feminism, but about all the different topics I've discussed. Of course, you wouldn't know a damn thing about my content if your entire opinion of me was formed after watching someone slander the most ambiguous, most inflammatory, and purposefully offensive video I ever made. I'm
trying to understand what Nuance Now wants from us as viewers. Apparently we should know that his video was clickbait, which yeah, we should. He's been extremely clear about that. Everything he's ever done has been for views. He's told us that. We should watch all of his content before we dare critique something of his. That's an insane requirement. I would never ask that of people who critique me. You are fine to watch a video of mine and critique that video. Maybe there's a point in the video where I say, and I go into this in more detail in X video, maybe you would get more out of it by going to that video, but you don't have to understand everything I've ever made in order to be able to critique a video of mine. That's absurd. What's bizarre to me is that he's so upset that people are treating him like a villain, whilst openly admitting he made a video as inflammatory and controversial as possible. This is a case of wanting to have your... This is a cake? I was getting ahead of myself. This is a case of wanting to have your cake and eat it too. If you want to get views for making inflammatory content, part of that is people responding negatively to that content. But if you do respond negatively to his content, you're wrong and stupid and you don't understand the complexity of the world. Like, according to him, he should have gotten exactly what he wanted. He got a negative response to a negative clickbaity video. And now he's like, people are so stupid, I can't believe they were so negative about my inflammatory video that I made intentionally inflammatory. He's bloody shirtless again in the freeze frame.
Hate or harassing anyone, and I'm certainly not radicalizing anyone. In case you find yourself in a situation similar to this one, guess what you can do if you don't like the video you're watching? You can just click onto a different one, or exit out completely.
Yeah, if you didn't like the video you were initially responding to on TikTok, you could have clicked out of it, or gone to a different one, but you didn't. You responded to it, because that's something that we can do on the internet in order to make a statement. Be interesting, just have something to talk about. He's so deeply hypocritical with every complaint he has for any viewer of his content. Anyone who ever says anything bad about him, they fucking suck. They're wrong, they're stupid, they're fragile, they're emotional. If you don't like it, just click away. Like 8 minutes ago, he was talking about how he made a ranty response to a woman on TikTok who he disagreed with. Why is it okay for him, but for everyone else, it's just an example of how fucking stupid they are?
Crazy, right? And I know I've already mentioned this, but I feel obligated to remind everyone that no actual harm was caused, and no harm ever will be caused as a result of my videos. That's not to say that some people, or a lot of people, won't be offended by my other videos, but I can't say that walking on eggshells is one of my top priorities in this age where people are so fragile that they'll kill themselves if you call them the wrong pronoun. I'm only gonna—
Again, that has nothing to do with anything. It's just another shock tactic to be incredibly dismissive and insulting.
I'm gonna touch on this next section briefly, but one of the most frequently used insults against me was to call me an incel. Concerning the issue of incels, I didn't even know what the word meant until I had to look it up after the first time somebody called me one following my initial spark of popularity months back. Apparently they exist on Reddit or something. I don't even have a Reddit account, but that's besides the point. I've actually seen—
I don't even know anyone called internet.
Guys who call themselves incels comment on my posts during the height of my TikTok fame, and do you want to know what they thought of me? They actually don't like me. I wouldn't even fit the bill even if I identified with them, which I don't and never have. Now you must be wondering how I could say everything so seriously if I didn't commit my identity to it. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but I'm a pretty good actor. Part of the reason I stuck with this for so long was as an experiment for myself as well. I wanted to—
It was a social experiment. I was waiting for this line.
To see how people would respond to this type of content, as well as how I would respond to their criticism.
I wanted to see how I would respond to people's criticism. Not well, evidently. If he's got to make long YouTube videos about how he doesn't care about criticism, guys, I really don't care. But everybody who criticizes me is stupid and immature and emotional anyway. He handles criticism like an absolute champion, clearly.
Some of you may now be wondering why I showed my face when I said everything I did. The reason is I needed this to happen faster, and it's much easier to grow a following when you're a real person to whom your followers can see and relate. Now, you might also be wondering why I couldn't have just done this experiment in a single video. Do you really think one single offensive video would have gained this much ground?
He's creating a straw man out of, not even a group, just like his audience. Like, he's putting ideas onto them and then saying, that's a stupid idea. The way he's talking is so bizarre. He's like, you might think this, but that would be stupid. You fucking said it. I didn't say that. Well, you leave me alone. Stop yelling at me, the audience, when I haven't said any of these things or done any of these bizarre things that you're accusing everyone who ever critiques you of.
You think if I made a disclaimer video every other day that I would have grown as fast as I did? Of course not. I had to burn the boats. I had to become the message. It couldn't have happened any other way. It's sort of like how the best way to motivate someone isn't always positive words and compliments. Sometimes you have to verbally berate them to get them to shape up. And
Sometimes you have to verbally berate people. But if anyone dares verbally berate me, you will not hear the end of the list of horrible names I will call you and assumptions I will make about you.
Now, before the idiocy starts spewing from your mouth, use what little intelligence you possess to realize that yes, obviously the type of content I make isn't exactly 100% the same thing, but it's connected. Everything is connected.
I don't even know what he's talking about. He's reaffirming, okay, starting by reaffirming we're all unintelligent. You, again, which is us, I guess. We're all unintelligent, we're spouting pure idiocy because we don't understand that it's all... Before we spout our pure idiocy about what? And then he just goes off about how it's all connected. I'll do a combined list at the end, shall I, of everything that he says about us. And I get a notebook. This video is so rambly. It's all over the place. I can understand why someone with the mindset we've established he shows in his content would need to believe that everything is connected by subtle bridges. The unintellectual masses just wouldn't understand because, to a regular person, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Unless you can create sufficient mental distance between yourself as an individual and the thoughts and emotions you identify as yourself, and therefore believe are you, then you are the real fanatic, not me.
There's a strong element of superiority complex about him as well, right? He's not really saying anything. There's no substance here. It's just strings of accusation and defensive comments.
And I can discuss such taboo topics with ease is because I am not identified with any of the thoughts that I share. My thoughts and emotions are like clouds passing overhead. I'm not attached to them, and they do not define me.
I went to a meditation class one time, and now I'm an expert on how all people should think about everything. Totally what this is.
I also wanted to mention that as far as women are not real is concerned, there wasn't actually a script for the video. So there's some parts that I don't exactly remember the reasoning behind, aside from it just being a generally offensive thing to say. I was literally standing in front of the camera trying to think of things that I knew would offend people the most. And I guess I succeeded. I watched all the videos made on me that I could find back during the initial spark of it all. Although, I'm sure a few more vultures have posted on it in the past couple weeks, hoping to hit it big with my face on the thumbnail.
Hit it big with his face in the thumbnail. Yes, please. Dude, if you get to openly admit to doing everything you could to get views, using clickbait, making the most offensive topics you can, you don't get to criticize people getting views from videos about you. This started with him doing a response video on TikTok. It's like the same rules don't apply to him as other people.
Now, weirdly enough, however, the biggest issue people seem to have with the video wasn't anything I actually said in the video. It was the title of the video itself that bothered them so much. And they were ranting and raving about it in all the comment sections, quoting me as if it was one of the arguments I made.
It's so weird that he doesn't understand this, right? He knows the title was clickbait. It was intentionally an attention-grabbing thing. But he's angry that it got people's attention. That's why you did it.
The most obviously false part of the post, and yet it was also the biggest sticking point for anyone commenting on it. How does he think women aren't real when he's literally talking about what they can or can't do? How can he believe women aren't real when he was birthed by a woman? Really goes to show how short your attention span is if you got
That's another one for the list.
stopped right at the title. Disappointingly, it also goes to show how dull you are. Out of all the crazy shit that I actually said, all the options you could have picked from, you chose the title of the video, the clickbait itself, and the only thing that I did not actually say to make your case against me. That's not to say that that was the only problem people had with the video, but it seemed to be the most frequently mentioned as far as I could tell. There is a reason, however, that nobody else offends you as intensely as I do. Despite
That's a bold statement to make. And a false one. There are plenty of people who offend me way more than doing it for views shirtless TikTok guy. It's funny how he can be like, I didn't actually affect anything in the world, whilst also being like, I am the most influential person. This is the reason I am better than all of the other shocking content creators. You're really not.
how loud or popular other controversial creators might be, they don't use their words as carefully as I do, as precisely as I do. I'm specific in the areas where they are vague, and that is why I'm able to strike your nerves with X-ray precision. I use the exact vocabulary and attitude that it would take to ignite the cognitive dissonance within you, if you're someone in a state of denial about the topics that I discuss.
This is the most vague and nonsensical motherfucker I've ever watched. No, sorry. He's just more word good than all other content creators. No one is more clearly in a state of denial than this young man.
Although, for the people who have been starving for a morsel of fresh perspective after years of having been beaten down by brain-dead mainstream groupthink, it breathes new life into them. Do you really
Everything else in the world is terrible mainstream groupthink. I am a breath of fresh air with my intelligent discussion of something. He'll probably just call me unintelligent for saying so, but I do not understand what this guy is trying to do, other than get views. That's the bit that made sense.
What do you think someone who has resigned themselves to sucking their thumb with other self-victimizing losers on a subreddit would be able to articulate their message this well? Use that microscopic brain of yours to think.
Hang on. Do you really think someone from a forum could make a message this bold and articulate?
Think about this for a second. Would it really make sense for someone who genuinely believed these insane assertions to show his face for millions of people to see? No, of course not. But if you don't believe me, it's because you've never once even begun to think about the world beyond the scope of your own personal existence.
This is just more of the same, you aren't intelligent enough to understand me. The whole video is just repeating the same fallacies over and over in some attempt to convince himself his opinion alone is the correct one and every single other person is wrong in some way.
Any motivation someone would have for an experiment of this scale is wholly lost on you. You can't even begin to imagine why somebody might do this. As I mentioned before, until you create...
It's wholly lost on us. All of us. Except wait, wasn't it for views? Didn't we clarify earlier on that it's for views? So actually, yeah, we probably get it.
I guess on a minor note, it could be said that over the course of time making these videos, I've developed something of a jester within me, and it really enjoys pissing people off. I like proving to people that nobody is actually as virtuous as they pretend they are.
Wait a second.
As someone who has always lived a generally virtuous, regular life,
nobody is as virtuous as they pretend they are.
Especially with regard to how they treat people whom they've labeled as the bad guy, even if said bad guy hasn't actually done anything wrong or committed any crimes. Even if all the assigned bad guy has...
I think it's interesting that, like, at least 2 or 3 times in this he conflates doing something wrong with being a criminal, committing a crime.
Done is said some offensive words. But I think it's time I stopped dilly-dallying and shared with you how exactly I came up with the original idea for this project. In the years...
So let's just clarify. That was 20 minutes of dilly-dallying. Now he's going to tell us how he came up with the idea for his grand experiment.
Leading up to my debut on TikTok, I had begun to sense an undercurrent of apathy and depression in almost everyone with whom I interacted. Nobody seemed to be interested in exploring anything about themselves, or anything about the world around them. Any expression of excitement for the future that I shared with people, even among my own friends, was lost on them. It was around the time that my feelings of concern about the large...
Everyone was miserable and closed off, and only I, the hero, could finally change things.
...society around me were becoming impossible to ignore that I came across this strange chart for the...
Oh god, what the fuck is this? What's that? Alpha to Omega? Ultimate consciousness?
It lays out each level of human consciousness almost like a staircase, or some other structure of elevation. When I initially saw this, I thought it was magnificent. Finally, something tangible to use in the age-old quest to end human suffering. I later learned that this chart was called the Hawkins spectrum, shown...
Okay, he's interested in the quest to end human suffering. His method for doing this was to gain a following on TikTok by making inflammatory content.
I formulated a plan, and I decided that I would become the face of this Nuance Now character. Although on the surface appearing to be just another internet ranter, as many critics would like to portray me, hundreds of thousands of people were actually receiving the message in the way I had hoped. The consciousness that lives within every human being, once coming into contact with an entity that has brought itself closer to the truth than they have previously encountered, overrides the false sense of the ego.
Once somebody encounters a person who is closer to the truth, that's Nuance Now, they're encountering this truth teller. He's almost talking about himself like a prophet. When they encounter him via clickbait controversial video on TikTok, that will help, what the fuck did he say? Dissipate the ego?
However, as any pioneer who's ever set out into new territory has discovered, I was short-sighted in some areas. I thought that by angering people, it would raise their level of consciousness, as shown on the chart, to the level of anger, obviously. The anger I was aiming for was a type of reinvigoration that would ignite the fire within other people, but more specifically, within other young men. who have had enough of the low consciousness, brain-dead, anti-male propaganda that has invaded every crevice of American media.
There we go. Why didn't you just say all that at the beginning? I was looking to reach young men who are sick of anti-male propaganda, and I wanted to get views and attention. Just take that, put it into a 2-minute video, you've explained the whole thing. Very few people are going to watch the entire thing. Viewer retention is a thing that exists. All you're doing by adding all of that rambling, crazy nonsense is you just make yourself look mad and like you've got no point.
While it largely did accomplish that goal, and is accomplishing that goal, I failed to account for the overwhelming majority of people's extremely low level of consciousness, or in other words, most people's extremely shallow depth of awareness. I also failed to account for the different types of anger. I wouldn't just be causing a type of reinvigorating anger in the people who are ready to hear this type of message. I would also be causing the opposite type of anger, one of extreme denial and resistance.
That's his whole video. Extreme denial and resistance. That is Nuance Now's entire internet persona, is rejecting reality by reinforcing his own ideas.
I endured much more criticism over that amount of time than anything that was sent my way after this recent viral video. But even still, I underestimated just how influential mainstream creators are, even if they only repeated the same robotic critiques that I had heard and read thousands of.
Just to remind you that all the critiques of him were stupid and the same and not important, in case you had forgotten that everybody else is stupid and I'm super smart, just wanted to let you know again.
Now, before anyone loses their heads over that statement, I'm not suggesting that I'm always 100% correct. I'm also not saying that anyone who disagrees with me is a mindless zombie.
He's not saying people who criticize him are mindless zombies. He's only saying that we are unintelligent, we have a short attention span, we're dull, fragile, we have microscopic brains, our heads are in our asses, we don't understand the complexity or nuance of the world, we're over-emotional, the things we say come from a place of idiocy. But he's not saying we're mindless.
The only fact of the matter that everyone watching this might be able to agree upon is that it's not a delicate subject, especially when combining the history of varying degrees of female oppression, along with our recent unprecedented times of bold, outright misandry in the West. No doubt, it's an extremely complex topic, and I think I would need a much longer video to hit every nail on the head in one go. There were a dozen different angles from which I wanted to approach this video. Some involved giving a big old middle finger to the haters, some involved trying to come off—
Yeah, because he didn't do that. He didn't give a big old middle. He didn't spend most of the video implying that everyone who has ever critiqued him is that list of things we just said, stupid, and, you know, spending the entire thing defending himself and proving that his point of view is the correct one all of the time, forever.
A bit less abrasive than that, but at the end of the day, all of this is nothing more than entertainment. It might be intellectually stimulating, but it's still just entertainment. Whether it's me, or anyone who virtue signaled by making a video on me, we all have an audience.
Virtue signaling is another one for the list. Again, he hates being associated with incels and red pill and stuff, and it's like, stop using all of their language then. But yeah, it's just another, everyone who responds to me is virtue signaling, whatever the fuck that really means. Seems like anytime anybody cares about an issue, especially if it involves women, that's virtue signaling. Him making his video, totally fine. Anybody who responds to it, wanker.
And I think the people who pretend to have the biggest problem with my content are those who feel the most guilty and have a low sense of self-worth because of it, and have been brainwashed by our gynocentric media to feel guilty about thinking outside the mainstream line of acceptable groupthink. It's also possible that they've done things to women that they wish to keep under wraps, and inflate their opinion of certain types of content to hide their guilt.
I'm sorry. People who really disagree with him, we are either brainwashed by the gynocentric media and or feel guilty because our real thoughts and intentions don't match what we're saying, or we're secretly hurting women and we feel bad about it, so we're covering it up somehow. These are the only reasons people could possibly disagree with me.
We're all subject to the internet's critical eye and the many other requirements of maintaining an audience. Everyone who has ever had any degree of success in developing and maintaining an audience is guilty of some clickbaity titles. And if any of them want to deny that and play dumb, I've already made scripts for videos on certain people, should the need to absolutely annihilate them ever arise. but I digress. Although there were a million other things I wanted to add into the video.
Such a fucking asshole. He's just an asshole. Yes, people use clickbait. The thing is, he's using clickbait whilst being angry that people have responded to the clickbait. That's what's so fucking weird about his content.
I needed it to be done, because I'm ready to move on with my life, and I hope that you are too. That, of course, leaves us with one question. Nuance. Where do we go from here? Well, to be quite honest with you, this whole ordeal has left me with a renewed sense of purpose, and I'm just getting started. While I think my days of resorting to bold, purposefully offensive clickbait are over, if you think that's a promise never to offend anyone ever again, you are sorely mistaken.
I can't decide whether this is a character, right? And he's just a bit of a dickhead who really does want to be popular on the internet. He wants views, he wants, I don't know, maybe he wants money or fame, and so he's making this content, and he's developing his character from this controversial clickbait style was, I don't know, maybe too obvious, too much, and now he's developing it into this conspiratorial, I am always right, slightly rambly, levels of consciousness, weird guy. Or he is that guy. He genuinely believes that he is better than most, if not all, people. He genuinely doesn't think that anyone who's ever criticised anything he has to say, or ever will criticise anything he has to say, could ever have a single good point. And he has excuses out the ears for why he doesn't have to listen to those things and those people. I hope it's the former. Because another internet asshole, whatever, maybe he'll blow up. I think the best thing would be if he just slowly died out, because that one controversial thing is over and he's not going to do overt stuff like that anymore. But if he genuinely believes all of the things that he says in this video, then I am concerned for his well-being. That's Nuance Now. Pretty bizarre. My recommendation would be not to go to his channel and give him views. Definitely don't go and spread hate, because that's exactly what he wants. If you try to say something with an actual point and get some message across to him, he's demonstrated extremely clearly that he will not listen to you, so it's not really worth the time. What you can do is leave a comment down below letting me know your thoughts. I particularly would like to know if you think this is genuinely just another character to get attention on the internet, or if you think he genuinely feels this way. And remember to check out emma-thorne.com for fresh merchandise. Thank you so much for watching. This is a very weird one. Do please leave a comment down below, it helps so much. Before I go, I would like to thank my giant chickens over on Patreon. Amalgam of Neuroses, Amber, Connla, Chicken Maximus, Lyons, goddammit Connla, Fulcrum, GamingRidge, Ghost Butterfly, Izzy, Lizzy Gayle, Mr. Creosote, Nick Hook, Taxman, and That's Not a Real Name. Thank you so much for your support, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for watching the video. Do give it a like, do subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and I will see you really soon.